The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is a story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. Welcome back once again for another thrilling, fun, exciting, hacked episode of the Babylon Project podcast. This is Raul Ibera, and I am here with you once again with my very good friend Jim Arrowwood.
Hey.
How are you doing tonight?
Doing very, very well. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm into that. So tonight, we are talking about what episode, sir?
We're going to take a close look at Acts of Sacrifice. Really, probably a very, very much a fan favorite for reasons that we will get to in just a little bit.
Yes, indeed. And actually, I think it's a fan favorite more for the B story than the A story.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, of course.
Okay, so probably just want to dive right in with the summary, sir.
All right, here it is.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
While tension between the Narn and the Centauri continue to grow aboard Babylon 5, so Jakar begins seeking military intervention from Earth Alliance as well as the Minbari. After the Minbari turn Jakar down flat, Sheridan promises that he will at least look into the matter under the condition that Jakar ensures that there will be peace aboard the station. Unfortunately, Jakar finds that his authority on the station is being undermined by a young Narn that is doing his best to assure that there is an open war with the Centauri on Babylon 5. Later, Jakar is disappointed to learn that the Earth Alliance will not intervene in the Narn-Centauri war. However, Sheridan and Delenn do manage to arrange some unofficial civilian aid in the conflict. However, this does little to comfort Jakar's concerns. Ivanova takes on the task of convincing the Lumati to join the Babylon Project. While the Lumati believe in the evolution of species through unnatural selection, they do agree to join the project only after seeing the down-below sections of the station and believing that this is how Earth Alliance separates superior and inferior beings. When Ivanova learns that all deals with the Lumati are sealed through sexual encounters, she seeks advice. Her solution is to convince the Lumati representative to have sex with her in the human way, which Ivanova leads him to believe that the performance of a strange dance is how it is done. Well, there it is.
Love it, Jim. Love it.
Yeah.
I noticed you've added your trademark.
Yes. I thought, what the heck? I'll tell you what.
Absolutely.
Did you like unnatural selection as opposed to...
Unnatural selection, yes.
As opposed to what would be the other term would be... I'll think of it another time.
Alrighty.
Character. Files. Opened.
Well, who did we have guesting in this show this time? We've got some significant talent in here, actually, by the way.
Yeah. We have Paul Williams, who played Tack, or talk.
We've only just begun.
No singing on the podcast for you, Raul.
We've only just ended?
Yeah, if we do any singing, I'll do it. Okay, at any rate, yeah, he's a composer and a lyricist, kindred spirit, fellow musician.
Mm-hmm.
Composed We've Only Just Begun and Rainy Days and Mondays Always Get Me Down.
Hey, how come you can sing?
Well, I was trained. No, and that was a less than stellar performance, but at any rate, both of those were recorded by the Carpenters.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, a really huge hit for Paul Williams was a song called Evergreen that was recorded by Barbra Streisand, for which movie I can't remember.
A Star is Born.
A Star is Born. Barbra Streisand performed this song, whom she co-starred with Chris Christopherson.
Hey, you were the guy who ran the movie theater.
Well, that movie was out a little before I started running the theater.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I got to confess here that I did like this movie. I don't like that look on your face.
That sound you didn't hear was my heart.
Oh, because it looked like somebody was holding something that smelled very bad under your nose.
Oh, God.
No, I'll tell you what, a lot of people do not like Barbra Streisand. She gets a lot of heat, but I really appreciate her. Her singing, I appreciate her style, I appreciate her voice, and she's not a bad actress.
No, she's not. I do like her singing. I like her comedy more than anything. I'm not a real fan of her drama. The only dramatic work that I've done is... Oh, sorry, try that again. The only dramatic work that she's done that I've really liked was Yentl.
Oh, okay.
And that was, in my opinion, a brilliant movie. But we're not a Barbra Streisand podcast.
That's very true. Nor are we a Chris Christopherson podcast, who I am a huge fan of also.
And we're not a horrid chick flick podcast either, though that would be a fun podcast to do. It's just that our wives would probably do significant damage to our persons. His performance as Tak in this, well, as far as I'm concerned, was absolutely priceless. I mean, and so much of it was based on just the way he was able to interact with his, I guess, symbiote boss, Corella.
Yeah, that one's a tough one.
Sam.
Sam.
Yeah, the Lumati. Actually, I just brought it as the Lumati in my notes.
Yeah.
But the chemistry that those two had together was just perfect.
I would have known this was Paul Williams without seeing him in the credits.
Oh, yeah.
Because his voice is completely unmistakable. As a matter of fact, I remember right after he did Evergreen and that movie hit the screen, he was just ballistic on all the talk shows, and he sang that song on every talk show. Let me tell you what, the guy can compose,
yep, but
he sure can't sing.
No.
Well, anyway, moving right along, we had Christopher Darga as Narn number 1, and among his credits include appearances on Deep Space Nine, episode called The Way of the Warrior as a Klingon, and also Voyager. And this guy, he was a bit of an irritant on this particular episode of B5. So,
sort of the... We kind of get an idea how Narn leadership is established.
Yes.
It's fairly direct, at least. Fairly alpha.
Yep.
And then we had Glenn Morshower.
Yes. Who
was that? What role did he play?
He was the guy that Sheridan called for help from Earth Alliance for the Narn, and who turned him down.
Okay.
Yeah, he had all the big fans behind him. Weird office, I'll tell you what.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I got it. That's who. All right. That makes it. I mean, I
Yes.
recognize the actor. I mean,
Yeah.
that part's easy. Uh, Most recently, he's been in Supergirl, which okay, I'll admit it. I love the show. I'm hooked on Supergirl.
Oh, so am I. There, no doubt, it's a great show. But at any rate, Morshower has also appeared in Next Generation,
Right.
Voyager, X-Files, Enterprise, X-Men First Class, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Supergirl, as you pointed out.
And I remember him from a lot of those.
Oh, yeah, and he's been in a lot of stuff.
24 was one of his bigger roles.
Yeah, he's quite the character actor. We also had Jeff Conway again as Zach. We have talked about him numerous times, and we will be talking about him numerous times in the future.
Yep, but we won't be talking about him in guest cast for much longer
No.
because I think we're pretty close to the point where he becomes, maybe not in the credits, but in practical purposes, he's becomes a regular.
Right. And then Ian Abercrombie as, let me try this,
Sam.
Corellella Murzon. Corellella Murzon.
Uh-huh.
The Lumati ambassador that proposes inappropriate things to Ivanova. And we'll talk about that later, of course. Now, he was in a show a long time ago that I really enjoyed called Search. Did you ever remember seeing that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it was I can picture it. I remember watching it, but there was a giant computer.
That was what, late 60s, early 70s, though?
1972, and I think it only got one season. And they would have a situation come up, and then they would have to find information about it. It was kind of like a pre-internet thing.
Huh.
And this guy would yell search, and everybody would start tapping away on keyboards and things, and they would come up with the answer. It was kind of a neat show, but it didn't get very far. And then he was also in the $6 Million Man,
Right.
1978 Battlestar Galactica,
Mm-hmm.
more recently Lost World, Jurassic Park, Voyager. He did voice of Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars.
I was gonna say, can't forget that. That's where I know him most from.
Yeah, Clone Wars. And then in the list is tons of other stuff.
Yeah. And sadly, he passed away just a couple of years ago
Yes.
at age 77, I believe. It says. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So there it is. There's our guest cast.
Mm-hmm. And on to the show.
Yes.
Initiating plot analysis.
Acts of Sacrifice. And, that really is an appropriate title. There's a lot of sacrifices being made, some more humorous, some far less humorous. And it's a sacrifice that starts the show.
Yeah. Well, this is a very, very dark episode overall.
The A story, absolutely.
Yeah.
The A story is absolutely dark. But the B side of it, the Ivanova side of the story, is extremely the opposite. Even though it tangles with some dark material, it does it in a little bit lighter manner.
Okay. I will go along with that. At first, I was going to say there is some dark elements to this. And, of course, as I keep saying, we will get into that.
Of course. But, well, it seems that the Centauri seem to lack some of the civilized aspects of war.
Yes.
In the sense that they have no hesitation as far as striking civilians, children, though the Centauri are claiming that the Narns were using them as sentient shields.
Well, that's been done before. And, this is no surprise, considering how Londo has recruited the Shadows to help him in this quest to restore the Centauri prominence.
And in one respect, there's another reason why it's not a surprise. We're not dealing with a territorial war. We're not even dealing with a religious war. We're looking at a war of extinction. It's such absolute hatred that one side will kill the other.
Yeah, one side is looking for genocide against the other. It doesn't matter which side you look at.
So, yeah, so some of the formalities of war you can expect to see and will see pretty much thrown out the window.
Yes.
But in the course of this, Jakar is trying to get some help, as you had noted in the summary. And, well, basically, I believe I've used the word sliminess with regards to the earlier Jakar.
Right.
We're seeing some transition, and it's kind of catching up with him.
But at the same time, I really don't feel that what Jakar has done is deserving of this kind of retribution.
Oh, no, I don't disagree with you. Especially from an individual perspective,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
But Jakar is now beginning to build some legitimacy for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that he is. But it's from, I completely agree with you from a microcosm individual level, but when you put it into the context, remember he's an ambassador.
Right.
And you put it in a macro political level, then your actions will have consequences. And in this case, they're not. He's dealing with some of those consequences.
Now, give me an example, because for me, Jakar has been more of an irritant in the past than a major problem.
Oh, I think it starts right there at the very beginning, even. With his role, with his role in the gathering.
Oh, but he was put in his place so handily by Delenn.
Mm-hmm. But that's stuff that's stuff at an ambassadorial level. That is stuff that's going to trickle its way upstream, and it's going to color, regardless of the individual perspective, it's going to color how the governments interact and respond to each other. Well, while Jakar is working his way through those sacrifices, well, how do I put it? Susan has been tasked with a sacrifice of her own in gaining diplomatic relations with a new race, and unfortunately a one-time only race, called the Lumadi.
Which she's just more than happy to do.
Uh-huh. I just had a thought. What? We'll come back to this later, but I'm still going to toss it out there for you. Imagine if Sheridan had done the negotiating himself.
I don't think it would have been near as much fun. And it would have made the episode a lot darker.
Oh gosh, yeah. But yeah, it's a new race coming in. Apparently they're fairly advanced. We do see the ship come in, and it sure looks like they've got organic technology.
I think everybody except EarthGov does.
And the Narn. I don't think the Centauri really have an organic tech yet. Delenn, and this gets back to the Jakar having created some of his own problems. You'll notice Delenn also has her own reservations about helping Jakar, and I like her response to Jakar's comment about how his hatred had kept them alive, that, in her opinion, now it may be something that destroys them.
Yeah, but also I think Delenn showed that she was not willing to take sides. That would be a very dangerous thing to do, I think, for the Minbari to help the Narn and not help the Centauri or one way or the other. But you can also see that she very much feels for what is going on with the Narn, and she would like to help.
Oh yeah, she's clearly sympathetic to the plight.
Yeah, especially considering when you've got 5,000 people just killed.
Right. And the truth is, she understands. I mean, she really does understand, and we'll find out more about this later, because her entire people went mad as a race, basically.
Yes.
And remember, she was there. This is where we find out. She wasn't just involved in the Earth Minbari War as the Great Council. She was there at the start of the Earth Minbari War.
Well, she actually gave the order that started the war.
Spoiler! Of course, we are spoiler friendly, so.
Yeah, we're spoiling a 23-year-old show now. Come on.
Right.
If you haven't seen it by now, oh, come on.
It's your problem.
Yeah.
You hear that, Scott and Wayne? Get watching quicker.
Come on, guys.
Anyway, you had made a reference in our note that Jakar gives up on a diplomatic solution at this point.
Oh, yeah. It has gone too far as Jakar is concerned, and there is no longer room to talk or negotiate for anything. It has got to be win or lose, black and white, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that's a false dilemma, but it's a self-created false dilemma, or think of it as a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Now, see, I doubt whether Jakar got any input from the Qari about whether that was a proper thing to do or not.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, he's had his fill of what has been happening.
Right. Well, and don't forget he does sit on the Qari.
Yes, but he's absent.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we've just looked at the high diplomatic side of it, and in our switch to the bar, maybe I was wrong about it being a self-fulfilling prophecy, though, because the Narn and the Centauri are more than willing to take the war right there into the corridors of Babylon 5, though, just before we get a good bar fight, the cops show up.
Oh, well, tell you what, I am really, really not liking the Centauri in this episode.
No, they're not exactly likable.
No, they're out picking a fight. I mean, you got two Narn guys sitting at the bar, minding their own business, and then you get this loudmouth in the background that is picking crap with people, and then the cops come in before, well, I'll tell you what. I would have liked to have seen that big oaf get taken down a notch or two.
Well, you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, the way things continue, in some respects, the Narn aren't that much better, because they go from a couple insults in a bar fight to murder to a flat-out rebellion, planning to literally bring the war into the station.
Well, of course, so the war is going to go wherever the people are.
Right. My point is that they're looking for the fight as much as the Centauri were.
Oh, yeah.
It was the excuse. To lighter side, I'm going to try and pronounce it myself now.
Okay.
Sam and Tak, no. Coralimazan and Tak, like I said earlier, they are just brilliant.
They are.
The way their hands, just the way the physical comedy, the physical part of their characters work. I mean, the synchronization was just absolutely perfect.
It was. And although the guy that wouldn't talk, that guy, Sam, okay. Sam not talking, he was aggravating. And I'll get even more into being aggravated by him in a little bit.
Yes. I don't know if I would go aggravating or just extremely annoying, but I sure wouldn't disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we find Londo. Before I go into this, one of the things I've got to mention, for the sake of our listeners out there, guys, Babylon 5 has this habit of running multiple story threads at once in the episode and hopscotching between them. And sometimes that makes it just darn hard to have a really good linear type of conversation about the show.
Oh yeah, because we're bouncing back and forth all the time.
Yep. And this is one of those cases because now we jump all the way over to Londo, who's becoming a victim of his own success, at least, in the sense of bribes for favors.
Right. And he's got more friends than he can count.
Yeah. How did he put it? A wishing well with legs?
Yeah. But isn't that what he wanted? He wanted to be more prominent. he wanted his star to rise, and I'll tell you what, when you have power, of course people are going to come looking for favors.
Yeah.
That's only normal.
Be careful what you wish for. Isn't that how the old proverb goes?
Yes.
Closely connected with that around this time, the Narn and Centauri literally are now fighting in the corridors. So
They are.
they took it outside, at least slightly outside. I guess taking it completely outside would involve an airlock, but
And I really don't like that loudmouth in the red vest. What is he, Centauri 1, number 1, or something like that in the credits?
yeah, the room temperature Centauri.
Yeah.
No, he is not helping at all.
Well, he's an absolute bigot, is all he is, and a big mouth. And, how tough would he be if he didn't have two guys with him?
Exactly. And you're not going to get an argument from me on that one.
Yeah.
There are people that you just wait for them to get what they're deserving, and he's
Yes.
real good at that.
I would have paid to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I bought the DVD, so I did pay to see that.
You did pay to see it.
Yeah.
Jakar is taking this particular issue up with Sheridan, and I don't know. In some ways, Jakar isn't exactly helping his case. Not so much in bringing the issue to Sheridan, but keeping a level head, because let's just put it simply: Sheridan's method of diplomacy is not Sinclair's.
No, it isn't. But I think Sheridan, when he talked to Jakar the way he did, I think Sheridan is wrong. The Centauri picked the fight in the Zocalo.
Right.
The Centauri picked the fight in the corridor.
Right.
And it's and then he tells Jakar, you need to control your people. Now, how is Jakar supposed to control his people? He can't be everywhere at once, number one. Number two, the Centauri are escalating the fight. And I think Sheridan was out of line the way he talked to Jakar.
I think, and again, this comes into the category of the role or the impact individual acts and actions can have in macro politics. And I don't think anything I'm about to say is going to change the fact that you're right, that Sheridan is wrong. But, I mean, when you look at it, even right now today, one insignificant nobody shooting off their mouth has immense ripple effects. And I'm not talking about even necessarily anyone in the public light. I'm talking about someone just shooting their mouth off 15 minutes of fame style on the internet.
Oh, well, that happens all the time.
All the time. And it's the same. It's in the same class of an occurrence. You're right. Sheridan's wrong in the one respect, but he's being honest as far as the impact that it's going to have on the macro political side.
Right. Well, I'll go along with that too. But how we react to people determines a lot of how the outcome is and what kind of results you get.
Yep. And that kind of goes along with what I was saying about Sheridan's method of diplomacy. Sinclair was much more of a diplomat than Sheridan was, or is.
Sheridan had some methods, Sinclair was better able to manipulate people on the chessboard than Sheridan is.
Yeah, Sinclair is a diplomat, somewhat of a politician. Sheridan is a warrior, beginning, middle, end. Warrior, leader type, but both of them are good leaders, but very different style. He is absolute alpha male, violence met with violence.
Yes.
And of course, that's sort of why he was given the position.
Right. And that's going to change later.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to change a whole lot. It's sort of like he's where those aspects of the character are concerned, he's finally in a position where he can mature. And that maturation is going to be a big part of the story, in fact, of the Shadow War.
Yes.
Continuing the Lumati tour.
Yeah, they get to meet Dr. Franklin. Or I should say Dr.
Franklin
gets to meet them.
This is where we find that the Lumati are, how shall we call it, strict evolutionists.
Yeah,
The ultimate non-interventionalists.
yes. And this is where I really began to dislike them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm disliking a lot of people on this episode, aren't I?
Yeah. I think that might have something to do with the fact that some of these characters just aren't very likable.
Could very well be.
But, yeah. Franklin's, let's just say I'm much more of Franklin's position. When you consider what I do for my day job with healthcare and research, hardly a surprise. And with all of Londo's newfound friends, jumping to the bar, back to the bar. The bar gets a lot of use this episode, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
We see a lot of Cat.
Yes.
For all of his friends, Londo is feeling particularly lonely.
Yep, and he offers to pay back everything he's borrowed from Garibaldi.
Which gets Londo a good dose of harsh truth.
Yeah, well, Garibaldi treats Londo like something he scraped off the bottom of his shoe.
Yeah.
Doesn't really want anything to do with him, and then when Londo corners him and will not let him leave, Michael unloads.
Justified, I believe.
Oh, I think so.
And when you think about it, even Londo is afraid of the path he's on.
Oh, yeah, well, he's paying the price. He is paying the price for what he has done and what he has set up and what he has set in motion, and he can't go back.
And if he's that afraid of it, how should he not expect others to be afraid?
Yeah, and nobody knows how Londo is doing what he's doing. Nobody knows about Morden except for Londo at this point.
Now, and maybe one of our listeners will call in or write in and correct me, but is this the first episode with the black jacket?
As I watched that, I think I felt it was. Because when Londo was sitting there in his quarters the first time he came on, I thought he looked quite different and darker than he had before.
Yes, and a lot of that characterization kind of comes out of that that purple was a little more clownish.
It was.
This is crisper, tailored, as you say, darker. That's a good word for it.
It's kind of like an SS uniform as compared to a regular soldier.
Yeah, it kind of, well, even Kat the bartender seems sad about Londo. I'll put it that way. I mean, you're feeling the tragedy of him in this.
Yeah, a definite foreshadowing of things to come.
Well, swinging back to the Jakar side, your challenge about how does Sheridan expect Jakar to control his people? Well, it seems that his leadership's in a bit of doubt. Jakar's, that is.
Yeah, well, other than Natath, has Jakar been a leader of anything? He's an ambassador. Is it his role to lead his people somewhere?
One, in all honesty, when you look at what seems to be the expectation, not just of Jakar, but of the Minbari, of the Centauri, and even to a degree, a lot of the humans on Babylon 5, they're with, their respective ambassadors, there might be a bit of a qualified yes to that. Because we do see that expectation, and we'll see more of it later with the Minbari, with some of the Minbari that come through. Though in those cases, they had a little more official status, so one could easily argue that, of course Dylan should be able to control them. They're representing the Minbari government as well, and she's supposedly the ambassador. But even in the Centauri, it seems that Londo takes the responsibility for his people, even insofar as he's deciding what is or isn't appropriate in the response to this very episode.
Okay.
Think about what we get to later.
Well, see, and now in Delen's case, I would agree with you because, for one thing, she's not only the ambassador, she is also Setai.
Was.
I'm sorry, she was Setai.
Yeah, good point. Definitely a good point.
And they all knew that, but the non-Minbari did not.
That's correct.
But in any case,
the the Narn are not listening to Jakar.
No, he's laying down the law. This is what you are supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. He gives them, and they go, okay, whatever you say, and as soon as he leaves, we attack in 6 hours.
6 hours. Right, right. And, well, your loudmouth in the red coat is used as an example.
Well, he earned it.
Yeah. They can't prove that it's the Narn, but, meaning Sheridan and Franklin and Garibaldi, they can't prove the Narn, but they're definitely suspected.
Yeah. No, I don't advocate that kind of violent reaction at all, but this guy he he reaped what he sowed.
Back to the acts of sacrifice again.
Right.
On definitely a lighter side of the story. The Lumati are a little suspicious of Ivanova. They seem to think that she's only showing them what she wants them to see.
Right. And she's, you don't take somebody you're trying to impress to down below, but this is what they want to see.
Yes.
So she's going to take them down there. But that Sam, as we're calling him, I'll tell you what, this guy is starting to get on my nerves big time at this point.
He's a bit of a perv.
Yeah, going through her night
lingerie
things. Yeah. I mean, who is it? This guy's from an advanced race?
Stealing panties.
Yeah.
Yeah, just relish the irony there.
Yeah. No, you say it's on the lighter side. I seriously think the Lumati are definitely showing a baser side. I would not call them advanced at this point.
Well, bathroom humor.
Yeah.
Or barroom humor.
Anyway,
Right.
We get into the Narn, planning and obtaining weapons and getting ready to make trouble.
Yes, and while all of that is happening, we're finding out that EarthGov is not going to be any help at all.
And the Great Council has refused also.
Correct.
No humanitarian aid officially for the Narn.
Right, yeah. Sheridan and Delenn are sort of hatching a plan out. Now, on that down below tour, the lizard on the stick. Am I the only person who, watching that, thought about Conan the Barbarian?
Yes. Well, at least out of the two of us.
Oh, you haven't seen that movie yet, have you?
I have never watched Conan the Barbarian or Conan the Librarian or anything else.
Don't waste your time with Conan the Destroyer, but Conan the Barbarian is probably worth the watch.
I'll have to get to that someday. I can't make a guarantee.
It may be a one-time watch, but you should give it to it. There's a scene when they're going into the city. It's the first time Conan's ever been into a major city. And, yeah, off of one of the street vendors is sort of the lizard on a stick meal.
Oh, okay. See, I saw that in your notes and I didn't understand the reference.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, I figured you'd explain it.
I'll have to see if I can find a screenshot of that to send it to you.
Okay.
But as you said, it was down below that the Lumati had wanted to see.
Oh, yeah, they were just fascinated by what was going on down there.
Right. Evolution in action.
Yes.
Is how he puts it.
Well, and Ivanova tried to explain it to him that these were people who came seeking a different life and they failed to find it. And unfortunately, this is what has happened to them. Right.
Except he sees it as, okay, you've isolated them. You let evolution play its course.
Yeah, he's, I'm sorry, the guy is an absolute racist. He's a pig.
I'll buy a pig. Racist?
Well, speciesist,
Elitist, I think, is a better...
Okay, I'll buy that.
I think elitist is a better phrase.
Right.
Because their bias, initially at least, comes across as racial superiority. But as we've dug a little more into the character, it doesn't have anything, ultimately, it's not anything to do with race. It's a matter of pure elitism, evolutionary elitism, to make it even worse.
Well, and maybe he is using evolution as his excuse for being a bigot.
I had gone through that thought process at one point. And the reason I don't think so is, well, one, Joe Straczynski's natural love of trying to explore philosophical issues, first of all, but his interpretation on what Earth is doing, he sees as a very good thing. Ultimately, he applies it internally as well as externally, and that's what I was trying to get to.
Oh, I see.
He's applying that philosophy equally internally as well as externally.
Right. Anyway, as Talk begins to interpret, Sam speaks up.
Yeah. Now tell me, do you think he really has decided they're equals, or is he just a little horny, or what? Or can I even say that on a family show?
Well, yeah, you can say that, I suppose, but
we're already seeing he's a bit on the perv side.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of both.
Uh-huh.
And I would throw in also a good measure of full of crap along with that.
Okay, if I can say that, you can say that, and I won't disagree with you either. Oh my. Before this gets into the gutter even more, which I have a bad feeling it will before we're done.
Oh, it's on its way.
Back to Jakar, he's trying to do what Sheridan said, controlling his people and having an alpha male moment.
Yep. And well, he's forced into proving his prowess.
Right.
He may have been talked to badly by Sheridan, but he did take what Sheridan said to heart and realized that he needed to keep peace on the station to get help for his people.
Precisely. And one insight of that, turns out at least, that Narn have a fairly martial hierarchy structure, because you really got the impression, this wasn't just a personal fight. This was a little bit more ritualistic.
Well, then, yes. And then when Jakar walked away after being slashed with that blade, a poison blade, by the way.
Poison blade, no less.
He didn't dare show any weakness.
Yes, and that was necessary to maintain his leadership position. So, there was a little more significance than just a little bit of anger or a little bit of insubordination.
Well, and then, of course, we see examples of this in nature all the time.
Of course. And, in some degree, it's not necessarily quite as violent, but it certainly still exists even in humans today.
Oh, yeah. For those of us humans that, how should I say, we put aside our reason.
Clarify that slightly, because I didn't quite catch.
Oh, well, setting aside our reason, we don't think. We think with our head. We should be thinking with our brain, with our head, but instead of we're thinking with our emotions.
Yes, way too much of that, especially in the world over the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah, it's escalating.
Just one of the ways that this show is timeless, though.
Oh, yeah. Now, if I may introduce the next segment, Sheridan and Delenn.
Please.
This is their, if I'm not mistaken, their first collaboration that goes against their wishes of their governments.
You are correct in thinking that.
And it's a foretelling of things that will come.
I agree completely. And even though this sounds trivial, what they're doing, that very well could be a career ender, if not jail time.
Well, he's absolutely going against his orders.
Yes, it's a direct violation of his orders, and presumably Delenn's as well, because anything that she would have done up front, in the open, would have been Great Council approved.
Yes. But Sheridan does explain why he feels justified doing what he's doing in this statement.
Professor, I've learned the hard way that governments deal in matters of convenience, not conscience. If they fall behind, it is up to the rest of us to make up the difference. If we don't, who will?
Oh, indeed.
That is probably, it may not be the most fun quote, but it is the most important quote of this show.
Oh, yeah.
Because it sets the tone for the path that the character will take through the rest of the show.
No, that the two of them will take together.
Yes, I stand corrected there. Yes.
They need to, we have established here a pattern of behavior that is not going to change.
No, and it's going to grow.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. They're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
At the right time.
Because it is a matter of conscience and not convenience.
Right. But there is one more C that has to be pulled in. There's one more C word that has to be pulled in, and they will bear the burden of this as well, and that's consequence.
There will be consequences.
That's one thing that Joe Straczynski is very big about. Even when you do the right thing, very often there are consequences.
Yes, always. And those consequences generally affect the way things happen way down the road.
And we'll see all of that come to fruition. Now, I've got a question. I'll take this as a sort of a side thought.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the station having excess food, more food than they can ever use. Yet you hear all of the time about this difficulty in shipping food and getting food out. I mean, they've got more food than can be used. They've got fresh oranges, but they can't get coffee? Seriously? Sorry. For the folks who don't know, coffee is my vice. I am a coffee guru. I'm one of these people who used to be able to tell what bean from what region by the smell and taste. So smacking down on coffee, JMS, that's where you're stepping on my toes. Now we're switching back to Susan, and we find the degree of sacrifice that she's being called to make, I guess, is a one way of putting it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Perfect union?
Yeah.
Tradition is important to my culture. Our important agreements are symbolic with coming together in perfect union.
Well, this certainly qualifies. The captain felt very strongly about making this deal happen.
Then we will conclude this deal in our traditional manner. We will have sex.
Sex?
It is necessary to finalize the agreement.
Well, I certainly appreciate, but I have to get this. Ivanova here?
Commander?
What do you want? Oh, right, the Pop Marat deal. I forgot totally about it. I'll be right there. I very sorry. We really have to take care of this. Maybe we could just put a pin in this right now, and I can get back to you in a little bit, and then we can finalize this then.
Of course.
So
Put a pin in it.
yeah. So Sam is satisfied that Earth Gov, or I guess the representative of Babylon 5, and his race can work together. And now he tells Ivanova that they have to seal the deal by copulating.
Now, here's my question. Is he telling the truth, or is he just trying to get some Earth time on the side?
Yeah, well, that would be what I think is going on.
And for reasons we'll discuss a little bit later.
Right. Now, see, we've gotten into some real heavy-duty stuff here during the show, and this, of course, is some comic relief.
Yep.
Some comic relief. There is definitely more.
Yes, indeed. But in the meantime, Jakar is having the killer turned over.
Yeah, it kind of complicates things.
In what way?
Well, because, as Franklin had pointed out earlier, nobody could prove who had committed the murder, okay, and this opened the door for Sheridan and Delenn to help the Narn, and now we find out that it's actually a Narn who has committed the murder. That's going to complicate things.
Potentially, though one could also argue that the fact that the Narn government took fairly decisive action could be looked at as a mitigating factor.
Yeah, it could go either way. It just depends on who is receiving the information.
Right. Back to your humor side, your humorous relief. Franklin and Susan's conversation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Take one for the team.
Yeah, yeah. He is lucky he didn't get knocked on his can.
Yeah. Especially with Ivanova.
Yeah.
I mean, Franklin is not helping. Well,
no.
Except when he helps.
Right. He kind of gets the light bulb to turn on above Ivanova's head, giving her the solution to this problem.
Right. One more heavy moment.
Yeah, before we get to the solution of Ivanova's problem.
Yeah, Sheridan and Delenn are discussing how they can help Jakar, and I don't know, I kind of suspect Jakar's going to be a bit disappointed.
He is. I think Jakar is kind of in between here. He's happy for what he can get, but he's not getting as much as he needs. Now, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When Jakar went out after they talked, after he found out what Sheridan and Delenn were going to do for him,
right?
Was he laughing or was he crying?
Both.
Okay, 'cause I thought so too, because now as I watched the show and was taking my notes, Diane asked me, is he laughing or crying? And I really couldn't decide which. It seemed to be a little of each.
If you would like Joe Straczynski's comments on this, we actually have them. According to JMS, it's both laughing at the absurdity and crying. About as close as we've seen to a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, well, and I thought that for sure that's the direction he was headed.
Yes. So that's your answer. Actually, it's a bit of both.
Okay.
And yet, in some ways, as much as you feel for them, in some ways, the Narn have sort of dug their own pit. Remember what started all of this? It was the Narn attack on Ragesh 3.
Oh, that's true. But, you know, the Centauri have paid it back many, many times over.
But the Centauri were fading. They were a race that were clearly in decline and on their way to the piles of history.
In their mind, maybe. But they were a major race.
They were a major race as far as technological advancement, but that was, when you see the level of decadence, when you hear how their holdings and their expansion, their sphere of influence has been contracting. You're looking at the signs of a people that have passed their peak. And
that would only be normal, though, for a race of people that, well, as others become more advanced, they're going to become just part of the crew, and not the leaders. But they could not accept that. Well, I shouldn't say they, because Emperor Turhan, I think, was a very good person who was surrounded by corrupt people.
Right. And in fact, he was actually, and this kind of goes into the idea of what I was saying. He was trying to fight the decay. He was trying to reverse the decay. In other words, they were in decline, and he was trying to do something to correct it.
But you had too many people.
Was of their own creation.
You had too many people like Lord Rifa who did not want that. They wanted to continue with
the old glory.
Yeah, and Londo fell into that.
Right. Fell into it or walked into it?
Well, I don't know if he walked into it as much as he was goaded into it. Because Morden, of course, egged him on, and finally Londo turned around and said, okay, Morden, you want to know what I want? This is what I want.
But remember, At the time that it really counted, Morden hadn't come to him. He went to Morden.
Well, that's when he was challenged.
By Rifa.
You're right.
But in that instance, in that moment, it was his choice. He could walk away from it, and Veer begged him to.
Well, Londo has a certain amount of ambition himself.
I agree, and that swings it back around to my point of, part of the tragedy of Londo is he created his own tragedy.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Now we go from the dark side to the light side again.
Boom shakalaka, yeah.
Yeah, depending on your point of view.
And Antonio was singing that when I was taking my notes copying, he went to bed singing boom shakalaka, boom shakalaka.
So now we get Ivanova's solution. She has decided.
Yep.
And it's pretty funny.
Just play the clip. we gotta.
I thought it over, and I'm ready now. I set aside as much time as required to have sex as it's done by your species. Since if we were to do it human style, it would probably be too much for you.
Are you implying that Lemati's sex is inferior?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, not as such. I mean, it just wouldn't be fair to ask you to do it our way on such short notice. The pressure to perform.
Enough. To conclude our deal, we will have sex human style.
You sure? You do know what this entails?
Of course. Ignorance is an inferior trait.
That's what I thought. You ready?
Yes.
Good. Oh. Boom shabba lubba lubba, boom shabba lubba lubba. Hey there, 3 bags full. You come here often? Yes, I do. Dinner shabba lubba lubba, drink shabba lubba lubba, kiss, 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 kiss. Grab! How do you like it so far? I slept with you the other night. You didn't call, you didn't write. I think you did it just for spite. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Tell me about your portfolio. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Lie to me about your family. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, God, you're good.
What do I do now?
Old style, you roll over and go to bed. New style, you go out for pizza and I never see you again.
Perhaps I'll call you before I go.
Yeah,
Forget
don't call us.
When Harry
we'll call
met
you.
Sally. This is
probably one of the most iconic moments in this entire series.
At least in Susan's character arc.
Yes.
And Paul Williams just standing there in the background. Watch it close. You can just see a little bit of his bits of his expression. It is absolutely beyond compare, and especially the way he kisses her hand at the end.
Yeah. Well, you gotta see this, the whole clip. I mean, yeah, the sound clip is kind of neat and it's funny, but you actually have to see this little dance that she performs.
Right.
So, go to YouTube. I'm sure it's on there somewhere.
Or just rewatch it on the DVDs.
Yeah, really.
Oh, that is probably one of the comic moments that is definitely one of the best of the series.
Yep. Shows that Ivanova has a lot of imagination.
And as we continue to wrap things up, the dead Centauri, all things considered, the way Londo addresses it is actually rather generous, I think.
Yes, it is. The victim is a nobody, and he was a troublemaker anyway, obviously.
Right.
So it's of no consequence. He
But Londo has never failed to stick it in the craw of Jakar any chance he could.
Yeah. Yeah, now that I think of it, yeah, that's interesting.
Uh-huh. Like I said, it's that idea of being lonely in a crowded room. And I think in as we go through this episode, we're seeing some of the regrets that Londo is having with some of his choices.
So you think maybe it's Londo in some small way reaching out to Jakar?
No, I think it's close, though. I think it's Londo in some small way reaching out to Garibaldi and Sheridan.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of Sheridan, it seems that he's rather pleased with Susan's results with the Lamati.
Yeah, she accomplished her mission. Of course, she didn't have to go into details how.
Right.
I wonder what Sheridan would have thought of that whole thing.
Yeah, the next time my way.
Well, not only that, but the whole situation. Okay, you know, we're going to seal the deal with this, and I wonder if I'm sure he would have been offended on Susan's behalf. I was.
If he was aware of it at the time, yes.
Right.
Finding out about it in retrospect, I think he would have been a little more soldier than diplomat about it, though. And, okay, I looked up, I researched out that toy, that thing that the Lamati gave her.
Yeah.
I will leave it as it's called a parachute, and I am not going to discuss it beyond that.
Okay. I probably don't want to know anyway.
You probably don't.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll leave that one alone. Garibaldi finally comes back and joins Londo for that drink.
Correct. And you know, the way it ends with the for a while, Londo knows exactly where his path is leading him, and in a way, that's part of his tragedy.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, we found out earlier that they know the situation of their demise.
Yes. In some ways, this series can be called the rise and fall of Londo Mollari.
Yeah, in many ways, which is kind of sad. Well, sir.
We've talked a long time on this one.
Yeah, and that is the episode we call Acts of Sacrifice. Number 12 in Season 2.
Number 12. Fan favorite episode. Anything that you want to add? Because I'm looking at the clock and we have definitely talked this one through.
Yeah. I guess just in general, there was a lot of dimensions to this. There was a lot of things that were there that a person could really like, a lot of things and people that a person could really dislike.
But it's not the show itself dislike, it's the situations and...
Exactly. Nothing was sugar-coated.
No. And that's one of the things that's always stood out about Straczynski. He doesn't sugarcoat.
No. It was very well written, very well directed, and for the most part, very well acted.
I agree.
I think Ivanova's little dance was a little absurd, but that
was the point.
It added to the charm of the show.
Yes, like I said, that was exactly the point, and it gave the right kind of break at the right kind of time.
Yeah, it was. As a matter of fact, all the Lumati stuff was the comic relief. Otherwise, this could have spun into something that could have been absolutely depressing.
All true. All true. And I think what you just said there was brilliant, and I don't think I can add anything to that.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'll just add that particular use of comedy does come up in later episodes and in later seasons.
It does.
Where you have some really heavy-duty stuff that's broken up by little things, and it'll be really neat to talk about those.
I agree completely. And next time we have, for our episode, Hunter Prey.
Indeed.
This will be a little bit more of a Earth-focused episode. So, until then, unless you have anything to add, no boom today?
We had a little teeny weeny bit of boom today.
Okay, we had boom shaka laka, but not just boom.
Okay, boom shabalaba today.
Yes, but no boom.
No. What about tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow. Boom tomorrow. There's always a boom tomorrow.
Always.
Good night, folks.
Good night now.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.